Hello everybody, Tyrone the God 3 here. Now, if you all have been watching my Dragon Ball Super reviews, then you all know that I feel a little ill about Dragon Ball Super, and this has been going on for quite some time. And I've been asking myself, I said, self, what about Dragon Ball Super is making me so frustrated, upset? What about Dragon Ball Super is constantly making me more and more upset the more I see it, to the point where I've pretty much given up getting angry at it? Well, I thought of an idea a while back, and I felt rather than ranting on the things that Dragon Ball Super keeps doing wrong, I'd like to tackle on the source of why I love the Dragon Ball series in the first place, which is Dragon Ball Z, and all the stuff that they did right. And no, this isn't nostalgic bias. This isn't me laying in the nostalgic bed known as the past and bathing in it, saying that nothing can ever get better than this. This is me legitimately liking a series that I continuously watch to this day. I watch clips on YouTube. I have several of the Orange Box DVDs, and I'll watch those over again. And occasionally, when I'm at my local bookstore, I'll pick up the manga, read it, and do all the sound effects and voices while I'm reading the manga. But that's neither here nor there. So, why do I like Dragon Ball Z so much, but dislike Dragon Ball Super, which essentially branches off of Dragon Ball Z? Well, in this segment, I like to call what Dragon Ball Z did right. I'm going to go over a lot of the things that Dragon Ball Z did in each of these videos that I make, and today I feel like it would be a best time to start off with the character development. So, what is character development, first of all? Not just in the Dragon Ball series, but in anime in general. And not just in anime, just in fiction in general. Not even just in fiction, just in all of media. Well, character development is described as something where a character goes through what we like to call a character arc. Now, what a character arc is when a character starts off a series or story or manga or whatever have you, acting a certain way or having a certain personality trait or an established character that develops over time and usually develops for the better. Sometimes they can develop for the worse. Sometimes they get more chaotic. Sometimes they get a lot more mature. Things like that. Prime examples are Naruto, where Naruto Uzumaki started off as a punk kid who did all of this graffiti and tricks and nonsense and shenanigans, and then he grew into a young, mature man who ended up becoming the Hokage of the village, having two children, realized his love for Hinata, and was able to help not just the Hidden Leaf village, but several other neighboring villages get together in order to create the great ninja bond. Now, it's things like that where we see from what the character went from being one type of character and then evolving through several conflicts, trials, tribulations, and experiences to mold him into another character. Sometimes, like I said, development can't be for the best sometimes. Sometimes it's for the worst. Light Yagami was a high school kid who was making straight A's, and he was helping out the detective agency, and he was a pretty, bright-eyed student. However, he ran into the Death Note and started killing criminals, believed he had a god complex, and continued to kill for what he thought was the greater good, when in fact he became one of the largest serial killers in the face of human history, and believed that he was above everyone else because of it, and anyone who opposed him, good or bad, deserved to die, which sent his character spiraling in a level of chaos and madness that eventually ends in, well, you know how Death Note ends. So, that's what character development is. That's what character development can take one character and turn them into another. Now, what does this have to do with the Dragon Ball series? Well, one of the things that I really admire Dragon Ball Z for is its character development. Not just within the series, but the several steps that Dragon Ball Z takes in order to further develop these characters in a way that makes you admire them. Now, if we're going to focus on the main character for a second, let's talk about Goku himself. When Dragon Ball starts off, Goku is a socially awkward kid that was raised in the woods, who essentially had a bad run-in with Bulma to the point where she accidentally ran him over with her car, and she even tries to shoot at the kid. And the kid travels with Bulma from there on through a journey where he gets stronger, learns more about the world and the people around it, But he starts off pretty weird by trying to pat down women's vaginas in order to see if they were women or not. And several other things that obviously the normal human being, or Saiyan even in his matter, wouldn't do, just because he started off socially awkward. He was in the woods. And how did he end up? Well, at the end of the series, he's a loving father, and he's also a husband to Chi-Chi. He has 2 kids, and he's even a grandfather to Pan, and he's loved by pretty much everyone surrounding him. Even his rivals have a respect for him. There's something about Goku and his thirst for battle and his great sportsmanship of it all that make him a very likable character. Now, does this mean that Goku's dumb? Well, not in a sense, but he's rather oblivious to the areas around him. Like I said, back then Goku couldn't even tell the differences between genders. And then as Dragon Ball Z pretty much ended, he had all sorts of friends and family surrounding him. The kid started off literally in the woods with nothing. He ended with an entire family. And he went through several trials and tribulations to get that far, fighting enemies who later would befriend him, marrying a woman that he protected a long time ago, and things like that. You know, it was all gradual development. So what would that have to do with Dragon Ball Super? Well, unfortunately, Dragon Ball Super decides not to compliment on any of this and makes Goku pretty much an idiot. And let me show you pretty much where this starts. There is an anime that's a shonen anime known as One Piece that revolves around the character known as Monkey D. Luffy. Now, don't get me wrong, I love One Piece and I love Monkey D. Luffy. He's not my favorite character, but he is a likable character. However, Luffy's main trait is that he's rather oblivious and dumb. Like, Luffy has a good heart, one of the biggest hearts ever, but he's not that bright. And in fact, he was literally so unbright one time it helped save his life. Luffy was fighting a character that could pretty much see the future, and it was based off of mind reading powers. So since nothing was going on in Luffy's brain while he was attacking, he was able to defeat his opponent. This makes Luffy charming though because of his idiocy. Goku, on the other hand, this doesn't work so well because Goku isn't an idiot, he's just oblivious. Goku's socially awkward, but when it comes down to martial arts, he's really smart. Goku was able to pretty much tell Gohan that he was unable to fight Deborah using energy-based long-range attacks and to fight Deborah head-on. And he even stated that direct attacks were going to work on him later on in the fight because of this. Goku was able to study a situation and learn how to fight certain opponents. That's why he's such a genius in martial arts, and that's why he is able to surpass a lot of his rivals in every turn. Not just Goku's strength alone, but Goku's way of battling helps him become a very finessed fighter. Now, in terms of development, there are major examples in the anime, even in Dragon Ball Z, when Goku's well into his adult years, that he's developed as a character. Now, I want to rewind a bit to Dragon Ball, where he ended up rushing off to fight Tambourine shortly after Krillin's death. Goku tried to fight Tambourine, but was easily defeated because he didn't have any strength left after fighting Tien in the World Martial Arts Tournament. So he got whooped badly. And that was all because Goku decided to rush in and fight somebody just because his feelings got in the way. Now, let's fast forward all the way to the moment in the Cell Saga where Gohan gets mad in a situation where Semi-Perfect Cell is pretty much taking out Piccolo and is going to take out Tien because Tien is spamming the Neo Shinki Koho and is about to lose. Gohan decides to rush off and stop Cell, but Goku basically tells him not to the point where Goku even has to punch Gohan so that he can fall on the ground and not continue trying to fight off against Cell. Now, this is very mature considering the fact that if this were younger Goku, he would have flown off and tried to fight a battle that was way over him as a fighter. Goku stops Gohan, his son, from making the same mistake that he made when he tried to fight Tambourine way back in Dragon Ball. Goku even sits there angry and meditating at the fact that he can't do anything, that he's powerless in order to stop an opponent that, in theory, is way stronger than him, and decides to hold off until he does his training in the Room of Space and Time, aka the Hyperbolic Time Chamber. This is development. This is how you develop a character. This is how Goku has become mature over the years of Dragon Ball. Whereas if this were Dragon Ball Super, Goku would have just been like, yeah, go ahead, Gohan, you're probably going to lose anyway. Herderpa, derpa, derpa. And that's pretty much what would have ended up happening, and it would have been pretty atrocious to watch. So at this point, what about other characters? Not just Goku or other characters, but what about the other cast of Dragon Ball Z? Because Dragon Ball Super is infamous for not really developing them, or if they have to develop them, they're going to develop them really rapidly fast to justify them being as strong as characters that actually got development throughout an entire series. So, let's move on to some other characters. One of my favorite characters in Dragon Ball Z is Trunks. Future Trunks, more specifically. Because Future Trunks in himself is pretty much the correct way to introduce a character into the Dragon Ball series. Trunks is the only character that isn't a rival or isn't Goku's family member that was brought into Dragon Ball Z. And what I mean by that is that Gohan was brought in because obviously he's Goku's son. But other characters were pretty much brought in because they tried to fight Goku at first and then lost, but they liked Goku's character, so they decided to be rivals with him and stick around and even occasionally help him in battles, and thus became his friends by proxy. Trunks was introduced a pretty much different way, and the series actually takes the time to explain to you why Trunks exists. Now, do you think that honestly Dragon Ball Super would ever try to do a 30-minute to 45-minute special based on Kaba, Kale, and Khalifa, based in Universe 6, tackling their characters, seeing what trials and tribulations they'd have to go through, maybe a mission that Kaba and Khalifa had to be put on where it's clear that those two Saiyans don't like each other? Hell no, because that will require effort and development. Trunks, however, got his entire series known as The History of Trunks, a story that follows Trunks when he was a young boy fighting off against androids 17 and 18 in a dystopian future that was wrecked by them. He teams up with Gohan and trains with him in order to become a Super Saiyan. Gohan was fighting the androids for several years. Unfortunately, because he had to protect Trunks, he ended up losing an arm. Gohan would later try to fight Android 17 and 18 by himself because he doesn't want to put Trunks in danger, and he pretty much gets killed. And the depth and weight emotionally that all this puts on Trunks is enough to push him to the brink and transform him Super Saiyan. And thus, he becomes one of the youngest Super Saiyans in history and decides to fight the androids, but he loses. But he learns from his loss and decides to go ahead and take Bulma's advice to use the time machine to travel back in time so that he can help remedy this entire situation. And that's pretty much how the history of Trunks ends. The reason this works so well is because when Trunks was introduced into the series, we had no idea who he was. We had no idea where he came from or why he could do any of the things that he could do. He's just this young kid that came out of nowhere that could transform Super Saiyan, a move that we thought was only being able to be used by Goku. But then Trunks comes out of nowhere and does it. Why? Why can he do all of this? Well, thankfully Dragon Ball Z is a series that takes the time to appreciate its audience enough to show the effort as to why these characters are developed the way they are, and gives us about a 30 to 40 minute special as to why they did this. And this isn't the first time they've done this. They did this again, and before that, in a special known as Bardock, the father of Goku. A special that has nothing to do with Goku himself, but rather his father, which is a Saiyan renegade who fights for Frieza, as well as his other Saiyan renegade friends, and only to be stabbed in the back personally. This gives us a chance to see the perspective of the Saiyans who the Z Fighters were fighting just one saga before all of this, and allows us to fully absorb how they feel in the eyes and perceptions of one of the Saiyans that was fighting faithfully for Frieza. He never even has direct contact with Goku during this entire fiasco that he's going through, but it does give us as the audience a chance to see things through his perspective, and gives development for Frieza and explains to the audience why Frieza is so evil, why Frieza is so heartless, and the power that Frieza has because he has the ability to destroy an entire freaking planet. And it's development like this, it's care like this, it's effort like this that Dragon Ball Z always puts in, that Dragon Ball Super has never even considered doing, that makes it so that we can appreciate everything that happens in Dragon Ball Z. We see the perspective of these fighters. We see the perspective of these characters. Hell, even in the Cell Saga, Vegeta started off, if you all watch, Dr. Gero had attacked Bulma and Baby Trunks. And Future Trunks goes, why didn't you protect that baby and her mother? And Vegeta states he doesn't care. Then later on, we fast forward all the way up to when Cell got brought back after regenerating his cells and using the instant transmission to turn into Super Perfect Cell. He death beams Trunks, Future Trunks, hits him in the heart. Trunks is down, and Vegeta basically assumes that Trunks is dead and goes into a huge rage frenzy on Cell. Huge difference. Vegeta, from the start of the saga to the end of the saga, has become a caring father, but still stays within his character. He doesn't do anything that Vegeta wouldn't do. He just did something that we are now appreciating that Vegeta is doing because it's gradual development. Now Vegeta's actually a very special case because in Dragon Ball Super, for some reason, they've decided to make him a comic foil and has used him for very, what I call, out-of-place things. While there is such a thing as character development, there's also such a thing as character traits. Something that you know a character themselves would do or fit with their character. It fits for Vegeta's character to go into a frenzy on an opponent. It just happens that this frenzy had to be not because he was pissed off. It was because he was pissed off at something that happened to his son. You see the difference? So it still falls in line with what Vegeta's character is. This still fits within the mold that Vegeta's character is. He's developing, but he's still in character. Does that make any sense? So one time, and this is just very briefly, and this is because I study everything when it comes to Dragon Ball Z, there's a scene where Goku and the others are about to enter the World Martial Arts Tournament during the Great Saiyaman / Majin Buu saga or whatever, and Goku says, man, I sure am full. If any of you guys fight me, please don't punch me in the gut. To which Vegeta replies, the first thing I'm going to do when I fight Kakarot in the first round is punch him in the gut. It's still in Vegeta's character. That was a comedic scene involving Vegeta, but it worked for Vegeta because it's still something within the line of what Vegeta would say and or do. Whereas in Dragon Ball Super, they decide to make him gaggishly cringy to the point where he's gotten, like, he's cooking Vegeta, which is fun to put him in and outside of the series, but not in the series when I'm trying to take him seriously. They make Vegeta do all these goofy ass things, whereas in Battle of Gods he did something goofy, but it fit because at least the show had the decency to pamper on that. Goku even states it was really big of Vegeta for him to do that so that he could save everybody else. So the show at least acknowledges that Vegeta did something foolish to protect the others. Whereas in most of Dragon Ball Super, he's just doing foolish things for the sake of being foolish because the show doesn't bother to use any of the other characters for comic relief. I remember when characters were used for comic relief in Dragon Ball Z. Their names were Master Roshi, Oolong, Puar, Krillin, and Yamcha. But since the series only focuses on Vegeta and Goku, Vegeta is in all of these out-of-place scenes. So what Dragon Ball Z did right was that they put the characters in comedic scenes, but they still used the characters' traits. They still stay within the line of something the characters would do. None of these characters did something that made absolutely no sense for what the character was known for. Goku isn't an idiot. He's just unknowing. He's just oblivious. Would you expect Goku, someone who's never went into a car in his life, to know how to drive a car? Hell no. That's why the episode where him and Piccolo learn to drive is so great, because it puts Goku in a situation that he isn't in, but he still stays Goku. He still acts like Goku. He still does the things that Goku does, and he doesn't get dumbed down for the sake of, I don't know, cuteness. I guess Dragon Ball Super thinks it's cute to make Goku dumb. Well, in Dragon Ball Z, they didn't make him dumb. They made him just oblivious. He didn't know what was going on. He had no control of the situation at all because he didn't know the situation at all. An earlier example of this is in a filler episode where Goku was hanging out with these like snake-like people while he's on Snake Way, and one of the characters does Russian roulette, shoots herself, and basically kills herself, and Goku is the straight man in the situation because he has no idea what's going on. This works so well with this scene. And these are the reasons that Dragon Ball Z works so well. These are the reasons why Dragon Ball Z attracts more people than Dragon Ball Super will. So that's pretty much all I have to say about character development. I can give more examples, but if you want me to, in the comment section, put down some characters and I can pretty much talk about them. And maybe I can start a spin-off segue series of that titled, I don't know, Dragon Ball character development or something. But as far as we're concerned, that's one of the things that Dragon Ball Z does right, is like character development and how you handle a character and how you develop a character and how you bring a character from point A to point B with a gradual character arc that makes perfect sense. So with all that said, I'll see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3 out.